Hello everyone and welcome to the Winging It F1 season review. We've got together a 3 and 2 guests to go through the whole of the season, the big talking points from it, looking ahead a bit to next season, and just talking through the big discussions from this season. So, as I said, I'm joined as usual by Freddie and Nigel. How are you both, gents?
I'm doing very well. I'm looking forward to getting into a few juicy topics from the year and also feeling quite Christmassy.
Yeah, well, nothing's changed in the last 2 days since we did the last one. So, yeah.
Fair enough. And we are joined by two guests, returning guests to the podcast, Ellie and Ed. So, Ellie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, kind of bored at home and there's no F1 anymore, so it's a bit boring.
Is that why you're on here?
No, I'm avoiding my principal's essay, but we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, no, we don't.
No, I'm totally... Do you just want to plug your work of it because you do a lot more than us?
I write for Drive Tribe and my Twitter is @EllieJaneF1 and everything's over there, so you can go and read it.
And we are joined also by Ed, who was on last week for the Abu Dhabi review. Hopefully this will be a few more talking points to go through. Ed, how are you?
I'm fine. I've woken up late and basically been treated like a king, and I'm currently with you guys. So unfortunately, you have to see me in the morning, which isn't a pleasant sight. But yeah, I'm very glad to be back on this one. Hopefully, I've got a few more talking points than last week's siesta.
Yeah, and as usual, there'll be the question of what is above the camera in Ed's room. That is so interesting. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out at the end. Maybe that'll be that'll be a big reveal at the end.
For audio listeners, Ed spends his entire time when he's talking in the podcast, not when he's talking before the podcast. He looks at the camera then. But when he's talking to us on the Zoom call now, in the podcast, he always looks straight up and then talks as if he's at the bottom of a mountain or a church.
Well, that's probably listeners. Go onto YouTube to see it so you can give us views.
That's my
and
autism.
hit refresh.
That was my autism coming out that day.
Does it always come out on a Sunday then?
Yeah, it always comes out on a Sunday after coffee. It makes an appearance like, hi.
Oh, this is already going off track. This is part one. Part two will be coming out in a few days. We don't know. Should be,
during Twixmas, hopefully.
Maybe. Yeah, sometime after Christmas. And yeah, Ed, same with you. Do you just want to plug your work a bit?
So I currently do writing for Inside F2, and I do a little bit for Drive Tribe, like Ellie does, although I do it only on an occasional basis. But yeah, give it a follow. My Twitter handle is EdSpencer99 if you want bad takes on everything. So enjoy that, and try not to mute me after 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't pass that test, but maybe the listeners will. Who knows? But yeah, let's jump straight into it. And it was, I think, one of the most interesting seasons that I can think of for a while. I started watching in 2007, and I think, to me, it's one of the standout seasons over that time, probably one of the top three. And there's been kind of a lot of talk about how well does this season rank historically? Like, is it one of the best ever? Is it one of the best in this century? Or actually, is it quite overrated? Is there not too much going on? So yeah, just opening with that kind of I don't know who wants to go first, but yeah, where do people stand on that?
One of the better... Sorry, you first.
No, you can go. I'll go. I think for me, I would have put it up there as one of the best in the turbo hybrid, like up there with probably 17. I think 17 was one of those seasons where I really fell back in love with F1 because it was just such an exciting season. But 2020, despite the fact we've had no title battle, which is true, I've still enjoyed like pretty much every race and the amount of tracks we've had that we've not seen before because it's been an unknown. That's been really exciting. We've had two winners who none of us expected to see win a race, in Perez and Gasly, and I think that's such an exciting thing that we've got to see. The podiums have been mixed up, because Ferrari decided to create a shambles of a car, and in a way I think I should say thank you because that's literally opened up, third place, and we got to see more of a fight because they became a midfield team, and you know, it was. I think it's been quite a fun season, and also we've also seen some records broken by the one and only Lewis Hamilton, which has also been great to see. So I think overall for me, this is one of the best seasons I've seen in a while as well. Definitely up there with 18 and 17 for me.
Yeah, I'll echo that actually. 18 and 17 were two very good V6 Dub hybrid era seasons, and 2019 fell a bit flat when Mercedes got a 1-2 in the first 5 races. But so, because otherwise I think 2019, the second half of 2019 was also mega. So this, when you have a season where you look like it's going to be a 1-2 for Mercedes every week, or a pole, or at least the win, then on the face of it, you'd be really despondent. And I think we were at the start of the year. Hungary, you know, even if it starts out as like a wet race and you're like, brilliant, it's going to be really interesting. And then after 3 laps, nothing happens and it's just Haas is being overtaken. And you kind of think, oh, this is going to be the whole thing for the whole year, isn't it? Everyone's just going to walk around and be bored. But it really lit up somehow with a dominant team. And it's just proof that Formula One can be absolutely crazy. Which I was very happy to watch this season. Very happy to I felt quite honoured watching this year because of all of Lewis's achievements.
Nigel, you've made a few pained expressions through this.
I don't know why. I think I preferred last year, and I think it's mainly because we had a run of 6 races last year, just off the top of my head. Austria, Hungary, Silverstone, Spa, Monza, where we had a proper battle for the lead. And this year, I'm trying to think of races where we've had those types of races where we didn't know who was going to win, or when 2 drivers at the top were battling all the way through the race. And we've not had many. Even the surprise results of Perez and Gasly, they were fantastic, but they ultimately came because of the circumstances. It wasn't a proper kind of race. We didn't have much wheel-to-wheel action at the front, I guess, or much strategy races. So yeah, I'd say last year was actually slightly better for me, mainly because we had more fights for the lead, I'd say.
I think, well, if you said to me in May that we'd have a season, we'd have Gasly and Perez winning races, I would have said, what are you smoking? It was a really good season. There was a little bit of boring races. I will admit there were some absolute shockers. But it's Catalonia.
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi. Mugello as well.
I quite enjoyed Mugello.
I enjoyed Mugello.
It was a demolition derby. Come on, it was just cars flying everywhere.
People watch demolition derbies.
Yeah, people who are not interested in people are not normally interested in Formula One.
It was scary, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, I'm going off piste. This season This season was probably the 3rd best after 2017-18. The only reason why it's behind, we didn't really have a proper championship, but we knew Mercedes were going to smash out the ballpark. But those moments of just where you have 13 different guys on the podium, 2 different winners, the craziness of some of those races, the fact we went to new places we normally wouldn't go to, or return to old places that we'd thought Formula One was never going to come back to. That's what made this season very special in my eyes. It's in a way, Formula One found its soul again. Found that why people were before.
I think it was one of the best that I've seen, possibly top 2 really, because I think it was a really important season because it was different to what F1's had for a long while, really. And yeah, as you say, having new drivers on the podium, not having 3 teams just strangleholding the top 6, and going to tracks that people actually want to go to, that we'd never get to go to as in a normal season, but because of this strange situation, then we did get to go to those. And I don't know, for me, 2017 and 18, I never really thought Ferrari would win. I just thought, Mercedes will come through because that's what they do. That's what Hamilton does. So, when I look back on those seasons, for me personally, I don't kind of think of those as a big title fight because, it just didn't seem
even halfway through.
No,
I definitely thought Ferrari.
Really?
Until the accident in Singapore
until
in
Singapore.
17,
Yeah.
I really thought Ferrari could do it, and then the spark plug went in Japan, and I knew it was over.
Yeah,
So I think pole position for Vettel at Hockenheim 2018 was when I thought this is unbeatable, and then he crashed in the race, and I thought he's so
and then
beatable.
Lewis won. And then it was like that's when like I was like,
that's the tide there.
Yeah.
It was
I
literally
for Vettel's
one day I was
career.
like, Vettel's got the title, and then the next day I was like, oh no, it's Hamilton's title now.
It
was like.
I think most Ferrari fans probably drunk the Kool-Aid after Bahrain when Vettel defended like crazy and won in Bahrain. But then when things went pear-shaped after Germany, like, oh my God, here we go. Or when I think I would have said after Monza that he could win the championship in 2017 because he became such a different. I remember the podium at the time. My God, it was like a cesspit. It seemed like the whole of Italy was out to throw flags at Lewis.
To be honest, I think it's more a me thing that, you know, even in 2016, up until Lewis retiring in Malaysia, then I thought that he was going to win that. And I guess it's just the belief I have in him and Mercedes that they would come back. So for me, it's kind of the difference between the title fight in this season compared to 17-18 wasn't kind of that great just in how I remember it. But then you've just got all these extra elements that I've said. And, you know, having new faces on the podium and having kind of genuine uncertainty and going to tracks that we didn't know what would happen. You know, we thought Turkey would kind of be turn out easy flat out, you know, and it'd be quite a disappointing return. We didn't know what would happen in Nürburgring with the weather. Imola, we had not crazy, but we had the, you know, Friday practice not on. We just had Saturday and then, you know, going straight into the race. We didn't know how that would affect it. Portimao, you know, who knows? Mugello, we thought that might be really boring, and it wasn't. It was, I think, one of the best races. I know Ed disagrees. We've already discussed that. We'll probably discuss it later. But, you know, I think for me, just the genuine uncertainty was something that we've not had in, you know, 8 or 9 years, I think.
We didn't have that uncertainty going into the race.
It felt like there was always
going into every weekend,
about,
you thought the top three would be the same.
Yeah, but then often it wasn't. And
so how,
you know, there was always something.
If you I don't know. Yeah,
it felt like there were
possibility.
I think, in Adam's point of view, it felt like there were a few more opportunities for something slightly different. Whereas, when a few years ago, it would be the opportunity for something would be one of these three teams would win, or the podium would consist of these 6 drivers. Whereas the possibility became, well, for the most part, 10 drivers for the podium. A few guys who got luckier ones as well. And yeah, maybe P1 was out of the question, but for the most part, we still got Gasly and Perez. But for the most part, you would say if one thing happened to either Bottas, Verstappen, or Hamilton, not Hamilton, but to one of them, then it would be the potential for more was greater than it's been in any other year, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's
the F1.5 was bigger than ever before, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we knew going in who the best 3 drivers would be, but you know, reliability wasn't great over the season, especially by Mercedes standards, and also for Red Bull, they had a terrible run with Max Verstappen, and yeah, you know, all it took was one of those dropping out, and suddenly, you know, it's an absolute free for all between, you know, 6-8 drivers who'd get it. And you know, in previous years, if one of the top 3 drivers of the weekend drops out, you just have another one of their teams coming in. Sorry, Ellie.
Oh no, I agree. I was just going to say, like, things like it was Verstappen would make a lot of so him in Monza and Bahrain, him crashing or losing power led to 2 different winners in a way. I know Hamilton wasn't there for one, and Mercedes made a mistake in Bahrain, and then also Lewis did a wrong weird pit lane start that I really still don't understand the penalty for. But it was things like that accumulated to the wins, and that was really exciting. And I don't think I've ever like laughed, cried, screamed at the telly so much in a season as I have this year. So I think in a way I kind of agree, like definitely Sakia, where me and my friend were just sat in my flat and we were screaming, like literally, like that race had you on edge. Like it was just, I think I agree. Like this season, just that idea of just somebody different on the podium was just so exciting, and I think that's why I think with Adam, like you are logical to think, yeah, Mercedes is going to pull through because that's what they do every year. So I can completely understand.
If Esteban Ocon got a podium in any other year, it would have been the talking point for the whole season. Whereas this year, it's forgettable. So I think that says a lot.
Also, nobody really seems to like Esteban Ocon anymore.
I'm
Like,
a bit
that's what I've noticed.
disappointed, and it's fair enough. He had a year and a half out, and I felt a bit bad for him. He didn't get to start in Australia because he's been waiting for so long. But he seems to be really plucking away and getting it. He's got a bit better at the end of the season. But then you look at Ricciardo's drive in Abu Dhabi, just able to do something slightly special. And there's just not. That's just, we all thought that was there with Esteban when he was at Force India Racing Point, and it just wasn't this year, it's a bit perplexing, really.
I think it was the Mercedes thing, is that everyone wanted him to be a Mercedes and thought that if he went to Mercedes, he might be able to challenge Hamilton on some weekends and, you know, kind of all of that. And then, I mean, not everyone, but, you know, that was kind of the prevailing factor last year behind the decision to put him in the car rather than Bottas, or the opinion to put him in the car rather than Bottas. And then kind of after all that optimism, he goes to Renault and he doesn't really perform. I think that's, to me, why he's standing.
He didn't make an indent on Ricciardo, who really he needed to make an indent on to prove that he could beat Hamilton, and because he didn't
and
do
Alonso.
that, like that's going to be interesting. And because he didn't beat Ricciardo many times, I think that's why people are less to think. People now think he'd more play George as number 2 than be the number 1 at Mercedes in the future, because you know that there will be a time when Lewis does leave. So
I don't think it helped that Gasly won in Monza. I think that took a real dent out of his confidence. If you watch the team radio, he was silent. He was just silently angry.
They really don't like each other, do they?
They used to be best friends when they were kids. And
I
then
listened
somehow
to the
they just
podcast
don't.
with Tom Clarkson when he was like, we don't like each other anymore. We don't really know why.
No, they don't see eye to eye. They don't see eye to eye at the best of times.
There's some slight on track, wasn't it? I think in Formula Renault or whatever. But I think Ellie touched on it there as Sakir, but there were a lot of races. Well, not a lot, but I think there are a decent amount of races, more than we've had in previous seasons, that I think will be absolute classics that we kind of look back on, you know, for many, many years to come as, or, you know, kind of go into F1 lore, and, you know, it's the one race people remember from that season. But yeah, I guess, Nigel, how do you agree with that? Do you think there were a lot of really classic races, or do you think actually some of them were overrated?
No, I do think there were quite a few classic races. Yeah, I think it was just similar amount to last year.
Which ones would you say?
Oh, thanks for putting me on the spot. First race, Austria. I think that's underrated. If anything, I think people forget how good that was.
I think because the season's so good, like you forget about like the earlier races.
Yeah,
absolutely. Then Monza, I guess, with the result, it was a classic. But I think the actual racing they had wasn't that great. Sakir, definitely. Well, actually thinking about it, I don't know what else would be a classic.
Can I put one
Turkey. I forgot about Turkey. Race of the season.
It wasn't actually a classic. It just will get replayed constantly. The British Grand Prix, right at the end, you will never ever stop seeing Lewis Hamilton crossing the line with 3 tyres. Like, they will constantly make out that was a classic race, and it was one of the worst races we had all season. All that happened was people's tyres blew up.
I think
that was the British Grand Prix in 20 years.
I think that'll be a race that's kind of remembered less as the 2020 British Grand Prix and more as
that time when
the 3-wheel car won the race. I think Monza might be remembered kind of more as Panis, Monaco, where people remember, the result. It was an incredible, surprising result, but actually they don't really remember too much about the race. I think Turkey and one that's Sakir, I think for me will be the ones that really go down, and people just kind of go into that. I don't know.
Yeah, Turkey,
European Grand Prix.
Turkey was like, such an interesting race. Like I went for a roller coaster of emotions, just like I did in Sakir.
So I remember thinking about Turkey. I remember hearing that they paid the track 10 days before the action. I thought, what on earth are they doing? Turns out they can do that anytime they want, because it was a brilliant race. It was like a blooper reel. Monza, I think, because of the result and the fact that it was so chaotic. I remember going into Sunday of that race and thinking, here we go. It's going to be a ball fest here. It's going to be Hamilton winning by about a lap. And then suddenly it all kicks off. Glurk crashes. Gaz is in a prime position. Gio gets a penalty. Lewis gets a penalty. Stroll decides not to use his brakes. Sainz is in a battle with Gasly. It was brilliant. Brilliant racing. I'd say Portimao wasn't too bad. There was a little bit of a border in the middle, but I thought it was a good race.
I like Portimao.
I wouldn't say it was a classic. You wouldn't want. Yeah, I love Portimao. I'm a Portimao stan account on Twitter now because of that race. I think it was a bit boring. It wouldn't be one I watch on F1 TV late at night at 2 a.m. But it was a damn good race. Nürburgring, I thought was a little overrated. I think we were only really got that excitement because the fact practice got delayed because Moran decided to host a Grand Prix in Germany in the middle of October. I'd say Sakir was brilliant. Sakir obviously was brilliant, but it did have a tinge of sadness. The fact that
even Sakir, like it wasn't the race. It wasn't actually that bad because Bahrain's a pretty good track. Like I know George kind of went and went see you later for a bit. You know, he did he clocked out a bit like Lewis Hamilton, but it was still like when he tried and get back through, that was still quite interesting and quite fun.
Yeah, Sakir was a roller coaster of emotions for everyone. I thought George was going to win, and then Mercedes had a brain thing, decided not to bother. What else was a good race? I
think Turkey, Sakir, and Austria 1 have the most rewatchability. I'd say Monza was excellent at the time. I think, as Nigel and everyone has said, the racing in Monza was awful because you could tell by Bottas not being able to overtake anyone that there was going to be no racing at Monza because no one had engine modes and the wings were skinny as hell. So they just couldn't. None of them could get into a decent slipstream with each other. So it would be so boring to watch again Monza because we know what happens. But for not knowing what happens, Monza at the time was fantastic. There are a few duds that we'll forget about easily. It's like just Barcelona and Spa. I think people are forgetting that Spa was really bad this year. Spa was terrible.
I couldn't tell you what happened in Spa.
Rosberg on overtook Albon. That was it.
Ferrari had a meltdown.
I forgot about I literally forgot Russia happened. So I forgot Valtteri Bottas even won.
Yeah.
I forgot Russia happened. I forgot literally. I went, did Bottas only win one race this year? And then I went, no, won two. And I went, oh my, literally forgot about Russia.
Russia was
forgot that race.
To me, Russia was the most embarrassing moment of Bottas' season because at the end of I know he won the race, but at the end of the race he said who may concern FU comment. And it's like, you didn't win the race because you won the race. You won the race because you're in a Mercedes and your teammate got like a 10-second stop go at the start of the race.
He got the stop and go.
And that annoyed me because it really, he could have said that again if he had another good race. If he really cemented a win, it would have worked.
He did. He won two races to Hamilton's. How many?
Verstappen won 2 races. I mean, come on, Valtteri.
Yeah, God, anyone could win 2 races. I could win 2 races.
But
I could win 2. I could win 2 races with my arms tied behind my back.
Like that's what I mean. Like I forgot Russia even happened. There's some races that were just so, and that happened. It happens in every season. There are some races that are just dull, and
makes us appreciate some others.
I genuinely did nap in the Abu Dhabi race.
I did too.
That was shocking. I think that was the worst race of the year.
Yeah, it was by a country mile. Can I also add nominees for the second Silverstone race and Imola? Imola. Oh, you agreed. Imola was boring.
I didn't. I'll just say I didn't really like Portimao. I thought it was good for the first lap when Sainz was in the lead, and then it was like, oh, great. But I would just also, despite what I said earlier, I think Monza, it ties in a bit to what Freddie said, but it was genuinely exciting seeing after the red flag because, we didn't know who, whether Sainz would get there. It did have kind of a genuine uncertainty for the lead as to who would get it, genuine jeopardy. So, yes, there wasn't loads of fighting on track, but there was, there were several storylines to follow.
Yeah.
There was how far will Hamilton get up the field? Where will Bottas go? Will he be able to challenge for the win? Where will Raikkonen end up because he was in second or third? There was Lance there. There was just so many kind of elements to follow after the restart. So I do think some of that will probably get forgotten. And yeah, as you say, if you're watching it, Sainz closing down Gasly, knowing that Gasly wins, it's not as good a watch. But I do think, as a spectacle to watch, I think it was very good. So yeah, I think I'd say 3. I think Sakir, Turkey, and Monza will kind of be the really well remembered ones, and yeah, Austria will kind of be remembered by people who watch it. But I think it's not one that, when you're looking back at F1 before you started watching, it's not one that people will say, oh, do you remember us? Do you remember Austria 2020? So if we just do a quick fire, where would people rank this season since they started watching? For me, it'll be out of 14.
Shall I just say out of the turbo hybrid era? I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's what we said earlier. Pretty good. I don't know. I can't. It's a really weird question to rank them against each other. I'd say, I think, based on the fact that it had so many little things, I'll put it as a second to 2018 for me. I really enjoyed that year.
I think I'll go first.
I'm going to go like Freddie, put it on par with 2018. 17 just did it. It was just a bit better. So put it there.
Actually, I might go second because 2014 was very good.
I would put it 5th behind 2012, 2010, 2018, 2017. It was very good season, but
I haven't ranked it in all my seasons because I've been watching since 08. So
yeah, I forgot 08 and 08 and 07 were kind of a bit naff at times. But
to be honest, 08 I was 7. Can't really remember it. So
I was about 8, still learning to read and write.
Yeah, I was in primary school, so I can't really remember.
Freddie was 15 by that
I wasn't
point.
15.
he's always been 15.
I still am now.
Oh God.
Born in 1980, and then by that point, nearly
good old days.
Yeah, I think it's harder for me to rank it against, especially 07 and 08, because it was kind of 07 and 08 were all I knew kind of at that point. So looking back, I don't really have anywhere to kind of compare it against at the time. And also, I was so partisan because, Alonso was the pantomime villain in 07. I wanted Lewis to win. And then, in a way, kind of looking back, I think it would have been really nice if Massa had won the championship because he probably was the better driver. But at the time, it was, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah, I come from a Lewis Hamilton fan household, and I think they just don't. They like Alonso. My mum likes Massa now, though. She thinks he's a very nice man. That's what she thinks. My mum
always
now.
liked Massa, actually. She likes him as a very nice man.
When I say my mum turns off the race if Lewis Hamilton's not winning, I'm not joking. I force them to watch it now. Jeez. Yeah, mum's a very big Lewis Hamilton fan.
I grew up really not liking Massa. I remember thinking, who is this guy? I don't like him. He's taken over from Schumacher, and now he's beating Hamilton.
That's always the feeling in this household. Like my mum hated him. So I was like, he's winning too much. And now my mum sits there like, yes, Lewis. And I'm like,
my mum hates the way kind of after the races. My mum hates his radio messages after he wins, and he goes woohoo, and my mum hated that. So yeah, not.
I love Seb now. I've grown to answer the door.
The pantomime villain for my family were Alonso. Although I didn't like Kimi Räikkönen because he smashed into Adrian Sutil in 08 at Monaco.
Not Adrian Sutil.
With being a 7 or 8 year old kid in a holiday resort in Italy, you were gutted.
For Adrian Sutil.
Everyone in my family hated Sebastian. Now they all like him. They all think he's
me and my mum loves Sebastian now. She's like, oh, him and Lewis. She's like me. Oh, Lewis and Seb's friendship.
Yeah, my nan and I literally used to argue when Sebastian didn't turn up at tennis meetings when Lewis was at Wimbledon and Seb wasn't, saying, "Oh, you could have cheered your man over." But now they're all like, "Oh, Seb." Seb's amazing. Seb's the best thing since sliced bread. Back in the day when he was winning, when he appeared on Top Gear, they said, "Right, turn the TV off. It's not worth watching."
I really liked him. I remember. I think I've always kind of liked Seb. To be fair.
Yeah, I have too.
Can I just drag this back to the 2020 season review?
Yes.
The 2007 season review. Yeah, so I think we discussed that at length, and I think we all enjoyed the season crucially. And there's been some seasons where it's like, you can't pick many points that were enjoyable or memorable. The big talking point off the track to me was the We Racers won. Under that umbrella, several events that happened. Obviously, F1 went into the season. There was the Motorsport Me Too movement. There was the Black Lives Matter, kind of coincided with the season starting, and Lewis getting very involved in that, and going on a march in London before the season started. And I think to me, that's a massive part of the season, is Lewis kind of stepping up to that next level and really transcending his sport. But there's also been a lot of negatives from it, most notably Nikita Mazepin in the last month.
I don't even want to talk about him, to be honest.
No, I'd rather we just name him nameless.
I will speak on him, but it's very angry thoughts. He shouldn't, in my opinion, that man should not have a race license. That man should not be racing in F1 next year. I know we can bang on that Callum Ilott deserves a seat, but Callum Ilott does deserve a seat. He probably should be in F1. And because of Nikita Mazepin's dad's money, and I will, everyone knows I like Lance Stroll, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you can't buy your way into F1, because I'd be a hypocrite then. But there's a difference, there's a difference in how you conduct yourself. Be an actual nice person. Don't punch drivers in the face. Don't make homophobic racist comments. Don't do any of those things when you're coming into a sport that says #WeRacers1. We Racers One is a bit of a bad it's not really worked anyway. But I can't explain, because being a part, seeing how many people gathered around when the whole Motorsport Me Too thing happened, and being a part of that, and it's so disheartening when you see that Mazepin is just getting away with it. And especially when the other day, like, I was, I didn't really know loads. I don't know who the girl is. I don't know. But when you see that on her Instagram, she's putting things out there, and then suddenly you're like, okay, so she probably was paid to say that thing. And it just makes it even worse, because she was what it is. She was sexually assaulted by him. And then he deleted this statement as well, to make it matters even worse, even though the statement was a load of rubbish, because he said, as a Formula One driver, no, just be a nice person. It's not hard. Decent people, most people can conduct themselves normally, but there are some people who just think they don't have to. And it's just really frustrating, because we've gone through so much this year, and for a sport that wants to increase diversity, especially within women, to let a man get away with sexually harassing a woman, it's so disheartening.
I can't help but feel. So go on, Freddie. No, you go for it.
For me, we went into this season with so much hope. There was so much hope in the world, not just in Formula One, in every global scene. There was hope for change. There's hope for so many more better things happening, so much better treatment of people, of everybody in the entire world. And then we got to the second race in Austria, and they cut away from the bloody kneeling to a pre-recorded kite or whatever it was. And the stage has been set since then for them to try, the whole organisation to realise, oh no, to come across as they regret making a stand, because now they think, oh, we can't brush it under the carpet, is what it looks like to me. And with Mazepin, like you say, Ellie, he's just not being a decent person. It feels so much like he looks at himself and thinks, yes, I am above this, rather than at least getting away with something he thinks he wouldn't get away with. He's as if he's challenging the system to see what it can do to him. And it's despicable that some of the behaviour that he has been got away with. He has got away with it already. There's nothing's going to be done about it. If anything's done internally, he'll have to buy someone in Haas a chocolate bar or something. That's about it. I swear, I really wouldn't be surprised if that's it. And I think there's just no there's no sanctions in Formula One for anything anymore. We had 7 drivers across the season choose to stand rather than kneel. And yeah, they're showing their support for ending racism, to be fair, and they're showing it in their own way. But some drivers did have reasons to not kneel that were stupid, and some had them that were kind of not stupid. But it seems to be like there's an acceptance of a lack of understanding in Formula One, and the We Racers One campaign was supposed to change that, and I feel like it hasn't. And I think on the most part, you've got fantastic actions such as Mercedes keeping their car in a black livery all season, having M racism plastered onto the side of the halo. I think it's the same on the McLaren as well. These teams are taking a stand, and they are pushing in a way they can. And when some teams in other instances don't take a stand, it all falls hollow and falls short. And I'm just thankful that there's so many parts of Formula One who are able to try and hold some of this to account, because it feels to me that the side is being let down by a lot of others.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Freddie. I do think a lot more can be done, but I'll say as a fan, I've learned a lot this year from what Hamilton's done and off-track matters. But on Mazepin, to anyone who is defending him, you need to seriously learn, because I haven't seen one woman, at least, who has defended him. I think that says it all. Until
I've seen a woman defend him.
Really?
And,
wow.
Yeah, and she was like, well, because this girl made actions. I haven't seen the video properly. This girl made actions. She said she was making actions as a woman. I don't think that means she didn't want it. That's not the right thing to say after what this girl is now posting on Instagram. Just because at the time she was drunk, that doesn't mean afterwards she reflects on it and thinks it was okay, because she still could have felt uncomfortable. But when you're in a car with 2 boys and you could feel intimidated, what else are you going to do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's hard.
Exactly. Yeah, and even then, it's only one out of thousands, tens of thousands. Yeah. So, and I can't help but feel if this was football or rugby or whatever, something would have happened. But I don't see anything happening to Mazepin, which kind of makes me angry about F1 if they don't actually do something and they let it go. It says a lot. And as you said, Freddie, with the We Racers One stuff, it goes against all of that. It really does.
I think for me, looking at the We Racers One campaign, it could have been 2 things. It could have been a PR campaign, or it could have been a campaign to change F1. And what's happened in the last few weeks has shown that it is just a PR campaign. It's to try and make F1 more attractive to sponsors and people wanting to get involved in it and, boost it financially or whatever. But it's not to actually change opinions or stances within F1 and the people that hold the power in F1. And to be honest, as soon as F1 came out and said, well, we'll fully support the Haas inquiry and, we'll agree to whatever they do, I think from that moment it raised alarm bells for me, because, it shouldn't be, well, this isn't related to us, this is just a Haas thing, and if they think it's fine, if a team who is heavily financially reliant on this driver racing for them next season to continue as a team think that it's okay for him to race for them next season, then that's fine. It shouldn't be like that. And it is an F1 thing. And what he put out in his statement as an F1 driver, he didn't put out as a Haas driver. So it's,
or as a person. You didn't say as a person.
Yeah.
So
it was an F1 driver.
It's related to F1, and it's not just okay for them to go, just say, oh well, whatever Haas do. If Haas say it's fine for him to continue, because that's not showing that they want to put their values that they've championed in We Racers One actually into action and into the sport. So I think for me, possibly, it's the most disappointing aspect of the season, is to kind of see that actually, as Freddie said, all this optimism that we had coming into the season is, just not just pitted out into nothing. It's worse than that, because they've tried to use it for their own gain. They've tried to use it for their own gain financially, and not without actually caring about putting any of this into action.
It's about time Formula One kind of realised what they are. Because if they're allowing Haas to enter this driver, then they're saying, look at us, we're purely a regulation to run a sport and the teams play the sport and that's it.
Yeah.
Or are they a business offering an entertainment, offering a show, offering a race championship that they're selling to people? They're selling this to the world. And if they're going to do that, if they're going to not just be basically governing body with rules, they need to take action on this, because otherwise they don't know what they are. They don't know if they're supposed to be a manager of entertainment, if they're supposed to be a ringmaster, or if they're supposed to be just someone who says, oh, you can't cut corners at this particular corner. And that's basically what they're stuck between. Formula One doesn't know what it is. And I think the only glimpse of hope in any of this is that Stefano Domenicali's first day is in a couple of weeks, I think. And
I think he will be a good appointment to help.
He's a great appointment.
Things like that.
Because
I think he understands F1 just so much more than Chase Carey did. He's been in it. He's done it for so long. And I think as well, this is just another thing about We Races One. I think this year, and I know we could talk about safety and stuff, I genuinely think Hamilton has become not only one of the greatest drivers of all time, he's become one of the most influential drivers of all time, because I know he hasn't done much for safety, but what can he do? Because we're at a point now where we just have to, F1's pretty safe, it's not fully safe, but his impact, on what he's trying to do in the diversity, because he is the only, black driver, and that isn't right in a 70-year history. How can we have one person? And his influence on this sport is so. My mum, I bring her up. She didn't know a lot about Black Lives Matter before this, and then she listened to what Lewis was putting on Instagram, what he was saying, and suddenly she was like, "Oh, like this is really bad." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to tell you." And she's like, "Yeah." So it just proves the impact he's had, and for F1 not to be like make they seem to just think, "Oh, well, he's doing enough." That's not enough. Like we need all 20 drivers to unify together and be like, yeah, this is like, just say it, just post something. I don't want crappy statements or crappy things said by the likes of Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen on why they're not taking the knee. It's not that hard to take a knee. I'm sorry. Like it's I don't know, it's about a minute of your time in your whole of your life, each race, to just take a knee, because especially the young drivers, they're so influential on these young girls and boys they have, who seem to like be obsessed with them, stan accounts. I was like with One Direction, they worship them. So the influence they can have, and they haven't done enough with that influence, is so upsetting, because when you've got people like Lewis and Seb who are so keen on doing it, and Seb as well, he's been doing it, but Seb can't do too much because he doesn't have social media, which is nothing against him. That's his personal choice, and I get that. But he's done it to the point he can, and it's like, so why can't the rest of you do it? Why have all these guys who are older and you think would be care less are doing more than you are? Do you know what I mean? And that's really frustrating.
It's also the fact that, like Danny Rick said, that he didn't know much about it, but he educated himself on it. He educated about it.
Yeah, he really did. He had the mask and stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He had the equality mask. I should feel that. I should chime in on this as well. I had hope as well, like everyone else did, that it would all kneel, because we'd seen it in football, where all the players had kneeled, the referee had kneeled, the coaches had kneeled. I thought we'd see that in Formula One, and then see 6 of them not, for some pretty awful reasons. One for the fact that, well, I don't believe in this, or I am a free man, in Carlos Sainz's words. And then you hear John Todd making these absolutely blasphemous comments about his wife being yellow, and the fact that he said openly in interviews, all lives matter, which was the complete...
He runs the FIA as well. That's what's even more scary.
Well, yeah. Todd has had a complete disaster zone of 2020. I remember he was in Valenciennes, getting absolutely smashed when there was chaos in Australia. But that's not the point. The Mazepin decision to not sack him, it seems a twisting Gunther arm and saying, you sack him, you lose your money, you go bust. But that's not the point. This guy gropes on. This guy is a complete lunatic on and off the track. He's nearly sent Drugovic into Narnia in Bahrain.
That was an awful move.
That was awful.
Horrible.
He punched Callum Ilott. He's got fans who have openly been racist to Yuki Tsunoda, which he's been laughing at. Oh,
I
don't
love
forget,
Yuki.
Yeah.
don't forget him. Don't forget him.
I don't
Nearly,
know how you can hate Yuki. Such
how can
a
you hate
nice
Yuki
guy.
Tsunoda? Also, him
Lovely.
nearly decapitating Yuki Tsunoda in the Spa
Yeah, with
part
the yeah.
And there was also this guy is a complete.
He's just got numerous incidents
No.
that stack up to a pattern of behaviour which
Yeah.
seems that he cannot adhere, because I hate to say it, I hate to use these words, but he's that privileged that he thinks money will solve everything, which in this case
Absolutely.
right now, that's exactly what's happening.
Mm.
Money is solving him everything. He's never had to fight for anything. Like even some of the other drivers have had to actually fight for something but they aren't making these stupid mistakes that he's doing. You know, they aren't having this pattern of behaviour. And I put something about dangerous driving. Someone, Roman Grosjean. I was like, no, like, oh my God, Roman has made stupid moves. And I saw someone go, oh, well, you can't have a go at Mazepin. Like, there's so many drivers who drive dangerously. Yeah, they have a few incidents of driving stupidly and making stupid moves, not a pattern of behaviour of making stupid moves and constant bad behaviour. Like this, I can't explain my frustration enough.
We all complain about Dan Ticktum and how bad he was. He makes Nikita Mazepin makes Dan Ticktum look like a saint.
Yeah, I used to really have such a frustration with Dan Ticktum. You know, he accused Mick of cheating and he did some stupid moves, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to Nikita, he's a bloody angel.
Right.
Yeah, I think with Mazepin and Ticktum, they're both really fast drivers. They don't need to do this, and they don't need to be idiots. But they, particularly with Nikita Mazepin, he's just. Oh, I think we can go on for ages about just saying he's an awful human being. I think we all think that, and we do need to be careful about what we're saying. But yeah, this is our opinion. But I think you don't need to worry about that because it's quite a consensus of an opinion. But
yeah, he makes Dan Ticktum look like Alan van der Merwe. It's just
wow.
It's so frustrating. And I think going back to the FIA, the fact that they investigate Hamilton because he has a political message on his T-shirt, you know, because it's something that he believes in.
Some good in the world.
Yeah, you know, it's something that needs addressing, that needs, you know, needs awareness raised on it. And he used his position as you know, an F1 driver to raise that awareness. And you know, he knows that it might affect him negatively. You know, people will send him death threats because of it. You know, the FIA may fine him because of it. You know, he knows that people won't like it, but he doesn't care because he knows that ultimately it is the right thing to do. And I think that is something that is catastrophically missing from the way F1 and the FIA have handled this. And you know, it's difficult for Haas because they have, you know, 1.5 arms tied behind their back, really. And, you know, I think F1 should be stepping in to make it so that they are able to make a decision based on what they actually believe is the right thing to do, rather than, you know, what they want to do for the survival of the team. And I really hope that happens. And none of us want to see F1 go down to 9 teams, but even more of the F1 fan community doesn't want Mazepin on the grid. He just doesn't deserve to be there. And I think we all agree on that.
I think
F1 can help by giving Haas money.
If defending sexual assault is what needs to be done to save a team, then someone should step in, such 100%. As Formula One or the FIA, to support that until there's a step up that can be made financially. Because Dimitri Mazepin owns a 10% stake in Haas now, in a look to presumably buy the team in a few years' time, I think. So I mean, he's just had his Force India case thrown out of court. So it's the entire future of the Haas F1 team that is in question here. And I think Haas are just, the management of Haas, I think, are probably putting their personal sale ahead of this.
Yeah, I would get if Dimitri Mazepin bought Haas, and I'm sure it'd be 10 teams on the grid, I think I'd be more angry at that than I would be having 9 teams, because honestly, I couldn't think of anything worse than having like Mazepin on the grid forever. Like, I know people get annoyed that Stroll's on the grid, but that he hasn't done any wrong. You know, he hasn't made any. He's doing good. You know, he doesn't. That's what I said. I said there's a difference between these are two pay drivers and their attitudes are so bloody different. It's crazy. Yet they both grew up in billionaire families, and the way they are, it's just very. How can someone be so entitled and privileged? I don't understand.
Well, I think there's also the point where the FIA should step in. I mean, we've seen it with sports clubs in all sports where they've been taken over by the organisations and have been run basically. I think if Dimitri Mazepin took over, I think it would be really the death of the wee racers one way. It's bad enough we're going to Saudi Arabia for Christ's sake next season, which is not exactly home to their great human rights record. So it seems to me we don't know what we're doing. The best thing I would say to fans is don't refer to him as Nikita Mazepin. Refer to him as driver Haas number 1.
Yeah.
No, I only, in my eyes, Haas only have one driver.
Yeah, and we all know. We all know that one, Ellie.
Team Mick.
Team Mick Schumacher Racing.
So, I'm sorry, it's Schumacher Racing. Like, who is Nikita Mazepin? This man does not exist.
Yeah. Is he? Question: will it be the first driver to be egged at an autograph session? Nikita Mazepin.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I've got money on it. I've got money on someone throwing something. But,
I think he is probably one of the most hated drivers I've seen in a while.
and he hasn't even got it onto the grid. That's the weird thing.
Yeah, and I think against all of this, there are some positives to take out of the sport. It's the way Mercedes have stood against racism, and the fact that they have made genuine. Obviously, they changed the livery, and that was good as a signal of what they were going to do. And now Hamilton set up his commission. I believe is there a Mercedes one set up as well.
Yeah.
So I think if the biggest team and manufacturer in the sport are doing that, then there is light. And we saw it with the black female engineer who was on the podium with Hamilton in Styrian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
There are strides or steps being made. As I think the important thing is it's not just based around Hamilton being the black driver on the grid. It kind of needs to be wider than that. It needs to be, once he does stop racing, that needs to continue. And, I think we all hope that. And I agree. It's something every fan wants, really.
Yeah, Mercedes have definitely been that. Like, we all get annoyed with them. They win all the time, but at the same time, they're winning, but they're also doing good. They're not just taking. They've sat there and they listened to everything Hamilton had to say, even though they're the head of actual Mercedes, not just the F1 team. They listened to what he had to say, and they talked to him about this whole thing because they understand. They've got to make an impact, and they've done such a good job with it. And I literally, in my eyes, they are one not just engineering wise, they just are one of the best teams on the grid with the way they've handled this. And I think, as you said, that's a positive we can take out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And if we move on to Hamilton kind of as a wider discussion topic, I think this season he has really transcended his sport. I think now he's in the kind of Michael Jordan, Usain Bolt level of people know him, or Muhammad Ali. If you know F1, you know Hamilton. Even if you don't know F1, you might know Hamilton. Is he the greatest driver of all time?
No. Okay, so I did an article on this, not to plug myself, but yeah, shameless plug. I don't believe there is a greatest of all time. So I don't think he can be labelled. He's the greatest of his era. That's 100% sure. This man is one of the best drivers I've ever had the opportunity of watching. I've seen, in the turbo hybrid era, best driver there has been. But is he the greatest of all time? No, because you can't compare every engine, every car, every driver, because they didn't race on the same equipment or they didn't race during the same eras. So I can't label him the GOAT because I don't believe there is one. There you go.
Ellie's taking the words out of my mouth there. I mean, if I had to say, I would probably say yes, but I think I'm with Ellie on this. It is so difficult to compare era to era, car to car, because there's so much more than driving the car. Just team dynamics, how you get on with your engineers, good stuff behind the scenes. It's not like football where the game is equal for everyone or something where it hasn't changed, or tennis or any other sport. F1 is unique in that aspect. So it is really, really difficult to say. But given what he's done off the track, I would edge towards yes. And given that he's done some less controversial stuff on the track compared to Schumacher and Senna, who, they got their elbows out and would do anything to win a championship. Hamilton hasn't done that. He's won all his championships cleanly. I would edge to say yes, but if I had a head, but yeah, I edge towards what Ellie said.
Yeah, I think I tend to always go to what Nigel has just said there about comparing it to Schumacher and Senna, and Prost by extension as well. Actually, Schumacher ploughed into Villeneuve, Senna ploughed into Prost. Prost parked up Senna basically. So these guys have employed dirty tactics to win. Hamilton's never done that. He's the classiest driver there. I think he's exemplary at everything he does, and he just gets better and better and better. And to me, I've got my Schumacher poster behind me. I always cite that I'm a big Schumacher fan, but I do think Hamilton is even more special. I really do think he's a phenomenal Formula One racing driver, just racing driver, person, everything. I think he's phenomenal.
He's like up there for like how Clark as a driver, like the way he drove, his talent. I think Hamilton's there with him because they just both have that raw speed, the way they drive, like they're just, that for me is like what you need to be one of the best. And I think he's definitely up there, like with that, just that talent and pure speed that you need. And so I agree, like he's one of the best. I just don't want to say he's the greatest of all time because
he's got the raw.
I play devil's advocate.
He's got the raw natural talent that you'd need to be great, but he's also got the work ethic that someone who doesn't quite have the natural talent would have to try and get them up to the level of someone with the natural talent.
Yeah,
which puts him even further ahead, in my opinion.
I'd go out and say yes, he is the greatest of all time, because I think, well, you can't, it's difficult to compare across eras with the cars and the skills needed and drivers that they face. You cannot compare the effect on the sport that drivers have. And I think Senna maybe had near as big effect, but that's largely, I think, because he died, because there's that mystique about him. We don't know what he could have gone on to achieve. And, it feels like a talent cut short. I think with Hamilton, yes, on track, he's just absolutely exemplary. And as Freddie said, he doesn't have clouds over championships that he's won because of the way he won them. He's won all of them by, being the best driver or one of the best drivers, over that season, and that's it. So I think there's that. And also, just the effect that he's had, the way he's developed the sport. He has become the next superstar, and an even bigger superstar after Schumacher. We've spoken about all the off-track stuff he's done already, and we don't want to repeat ourselves too much on that. But, as I said, I don't think, when you look back at athletes who have transcended their sports, I don't think Schumacher or Senna or even Clark did it in the same way that he did. He is, of the athletes I've listed off, or Ronaldo or Messi, I think for me, he is that level of athlete. That's just my opinion. And, I like having GOAT debates, and, I think it is a good thing to compare drivers and compare the cars they were in, compare the skills they were needed, and look at the way their contemporaries rate them.
Yeah, for me, there's not one GOAT. I've always believed there's 4 GOATs. That's Fangio, Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton. Hamilton's joined them because he got all three combined. He's got the work ethic of Schumacher, he's got the speed of Fangio, and he's got the greatness in terms of outside of the race thing that Ayrton had.
But then why does that, if he's got all those elements of all of them, why does that not elevate him above them?
That's actually you're playing devil's advocate, and I like that.
I'm not. This is what I think. This is genuinely what I think.
That is true. I will agree. You've said he's got the qualities of all 3, so if he's got the qualities of combination,
I would say Senna has all 3 qualities as well. Actually, to be fair, I'd say
because I think
those qualities with Senna and arguably with Prost.
Anyone in there?
But did Schumacher have the all three. I think Schumacher did a lot of work for charity.
Well, he did
But
massive work for Germany. I'll give him that.
Yeah,
Germany
charity.
wouldn't be in Formula One if it wasn't
transcended
Germany would have
Formula
not
One
been.
in Germany, yeah,
100%. But same with Brazil with
and
Senna.
And in the
But
UK,
then,
he was a Ferrari driver, and he grew Schumacher with the Tifosi in Italy, built Ferrari into the status that Ferrari is. Ferrari had a mythical status, but it's so much more now.
Ellie, do you want to jump in?
Hamilton never had to transform the UK because we were already so big in racing, but he still made that big impact because he's Lewis Hamilton. I don't really know how to explain it, but he's just Lewis Hamilton. That's how he is.
Hamilton does have the edge to me out of all three because of the fact that he is a trailblazer. I mean, coming into the sport, he was the first black driver to ever race in Formula One, but he's made it so much more than that. He's brought so many people into the sport because they've seen what he's done and think, if he can do it, I can do it. He's a generational talent, and he's almost become a bit of a demigod in a sense. I don't like to use that phrase demigod because I think it adds way too much pressure to already someone has. But I think if you look at what Hamilton's done, the way he's transformed the sport, the way people think, but the way he's also done his talking on the track as well. The way he's won races where no one has thought he could win. I remember Hungary 2019, he had a massive gap to Verstappen. There was pretty much, you had to be very special to win that race, to catch Verstappen.
And overtake.
And overtake.
And he did Hungary.
He did that. It's the same with, go on.
It adds to what Adam said earlier about the myth that really worked for Senna. That was there, I think, not just because he died. I think that was there when Senna was alive. But I think that's there for Hamilton now as well. Present in his career is a mythical status for Lewis Hamilton. And I think you don't really get that with other drivers. I've not really experienced that with other drivers watching them. I think the only time I would have thought about that would have been Michael Schumacher when I was a teeny one. So I think that's what
in 1977.
Back in the BC years, but
back in 1975 when he was a full-on Schumacher Decra-wearing lover who waved the Benetton flag at Silverstone when no one else would.
I don't know what you're talking about. So, but yeah, I think Schumacher is just a fantastic driver, and I do think Hamilton transcends it. He's so good.
Hamilton surpassed all the records, by that much. It doesn't make sense. This man's good. Let's say, in my opinion, Lewis Hamilton by next year will probably be over 100-time Grand Prix winner, and by 100 and God knows how many poles. I don't even want to think about how many poles that man's gonna have by the end of his career. I'm saying this now. I'm sure we all said this back in the day. Well, I think because I was like a child when Schumacher retired, but I genuinely don't know how anybody can break these records that Lewis Hamilton will set. I don't know how to do it. They've got to be literally they've got to be the GOAT. There is just nothing else to it because
Max has 10 wins already.
Yeah, but Lewis, how many wins did Lewis have by this point in Max's career? So compare their careers there.
If you go by careers, it's ridiculous. Lewis had won 3 championships, but if you go by pure age, Max has 10 at 22.
Well, Max,
and so if you go by
Max
age,
came in at 17.
Exactly. So Max has got more opportunity to then sort of start his career now and still be at the same state.
Controversial opinion. Max Verstappen won't win a world title, but yeah.
I don't think it's that controversial.
No.
I mean,
oh.
7 years ago, I thought Hamilton will struggle to even win another world title.
Yeah.
Back in 2013. So to win 7
100%.
is just remarkable, and to possibly get 100 wins.
In that dark year of 2009 with McLaren, nobody. I think in the years at McLaren, really after 2008, it was a struggle to see him winning a title again.
Yeah.
And then especially in 2012 when he went moving to Mercedes, who were a pile of shit, and we were just there is this really the best idea for you? If you've seen the Top Gear episode when he goes like Clarkson goes to him, what are you thinking? Why are you moving? And then literally we all sit back and we go, well, okay, man was a bit of a genius,
I remember
made
thinking
the best
it was a mistake.
Yeah, I think everyone did. It's really funny, and now we're just
I remember not being able to get my head around it. I thought 2013, I thought Sebastian was on his way to becoming what Lewis is.
Yeah,
I thought
absolutely.
We all did.
I think
We all did,
everybody
yeah.
thought that.
Yeah, Sebastian, I thought was the next chosen one, and then Lewis decides to throw the Uno card out.
Yeah,
So that's not.
he's yeah.
That's
I don't know.
that's-
Kind of
that-
pick
the
up 4
reverse-
wild card.
And
The reverse Uno.
especially because you can actually, I feel like Hamilton and Vettel, you can compare against each other properly,
Definitely.
and you can say Hamilton is better because he did beat him for the world title twice, fair and square. Like they would battle on track and see it, and Hamilton would win on the occasion. You know, Vettel would win, so we can say fair and square. You know, probably Hamilton is better than Vettel, but again, like you said, we all thought it was going to be Vettel. I think a lot of people as well, because he was German, and you know, he adored Michael in Vettel. You know, we all thought Vettel was going to be the next Michael, and then Lewis just said, "Nah, it's for me. Like it's my time."
Yeah, and I think on the Michael point, you know, and how he transformed Germany as a motorsport power. I think yes, Lewis couldn't do that because you know he just wasn't starting from as low down, but he did. You know, Britain hadn't had that type of driver in a long time. You know, James Hunt maybe, you know, a driver who captured
Mansell.
the imagination, maybe,
Jackie
Hill or
Stewart.
Mansell, but
Yeah, was Mansell or Hill the last world champion for Britain after Lewis?
Yeah,
you
it was
know, and
Damon.
they hadn't, before Button won in 06, we hadn't had a winner in, you know, quite a few years.
Not
Because
since
Richard could-
DC.
That's
no,
completely
Not
wrong.
since-
Ignore that.
Not since
But-
DC in
DC.
2000 or
Yeah.
2001 had there been a winner before Button. There's
Yeah.
been something like nearly 80, 90 races since a British winner, basically. So
And he did have to win the British crowds round because, you know, a lot of people saw him as a brat, as, you know, someone who didn't deserve to be there. Some of them thought, you know,
I've never
because,
got
you
that
know,
Hamilton's a
disliked him
brat
because he was
stigma.
black.
I think,
Yeah.
I think
Never
if
got
anyone's
that.
read Mark Priestley's book, it came across that he was a bit distant from the team, but I think that's because he never felt like he fit in. I think that brings us back to our debate we were having earlier, is that the world kind of seemed to want to ignore Hamilton. They didn't want him to be good, and he felt so ostracized, and he still managed to build it up and build himself. And it didn't quite work at McLaren for that, because there were bridges that couldn't really be rebuilt from a few stages from when he was very young. But the way he came to Mercedes is a whole new mindset, and the way he's built himself into that team, and the way he's come across as a person in that team has really, really properly galvanized Mercedes towards him. And like you mentioned earlier, the way he's won over the board at Daimler, Ola Kalenius has only been in that position for a year since Dieter Zetsche left, but he won over all the people at the big bosses and everyone everywhere in that company, and everyone who succeeded ever in that company is in awe and in the thrall of Lewis, because he has built himself as a person in such and such a way, and he's consistently learning, he's consistently getting better. And I think you can really see that looking at the general consensus towards him in his early career. As Adam says, is a bit of a put upon brat. He was a bit, but he was my age. He was a young guy. He's not
Probably knew he was good.
Knew he was good because he deserved to know he was good, because he was good and he wasn't being appreciated properly. He was
And also,
putting the team
in a way,
alongside
he was-
Fernando Alonso, and only until 2008 did he really start to then build with McLaren a bit. But McLaren was still basically the team they wanted to be 15 years before. So he had to develop McLaren a bit, and he struggled to do that. But he did that at Mercedes, and he made it his team, and that's what's really definitely helped to win them so many championships, particularly 17 and 18, where they needed to work. They needed to beat Ferrari, not just beat themselves. They needed to get into Ferrari's head and crush them, and they did twice. So I think that says a lot to me.
Yeah, I think just coming back to this season to round it up, for me, you know, it's a season where he's gone from just being a racing driver to being, you know, an athlete. You know, he's one of the greatest athletes of all time, and you know, within that, I think he is the greatest F1 driver of all time, because he's the only F1 driver and one of very few, you know, sports people who've risen to that. Ed's so annoyed that he's covered up the camera, but you know, he's one of the very few people and the only F1 driver who has got to that stage. And you know, it's also a season where he's won differently. It's not, you know, 07, 08 where he just came on, he was blindingly quick. You know, it's not, you know, 14, 15 where he was, you know, fighting tooth and nail with Rosberg. It's, you know, he's winning smart, he's winning through tyre management when he's not got a huge advantage over Bottas. He's winning races that perhaps he wouldn't do. So I think for me, he is the greatest of all time. Would anyone else agree, or does everyone else think there is no greatest of all time?
I
like
think
you
we've already
said, though,
said
just saying
that.
about like this year, if just going into it, like as an athlete, if Lewis doesn't win, just because we're recording this on a Sunday, it's spotty tonight. I genuinely don't understand what goes through the British public's head. Because
well, we
in
voted
my
for
eyes,
Brexit, so anything can happen.
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't. I'd just like to point that out.
We didn't vote for Brexit.
We
I
did not.
couldn't vote. I personally
I
couldn't vote, and I
we
would have
can't
voted
either.
Remain
was
anyway.
You should have tried harder.
I was 14.
It's this lack of determination from snowflakes that is why this country is going down. And
We've been at risk of becoming a Brexit podcast too many times in the past, I think.
we became an anti-Brexit podcast yesterday.
If he doesn't win spotty tonight, and I would say out of all the athletes, like he's just been the most outstanding in Britain. Like he, to me, is one of the best British athletes ever. So, like you said, that raised him to that level.
Ooh, that's another debate.
I bet Tyson
That's
Fury
another
wins.
debate.
I bet Tyson Fury wins.
Come on, Ronnie.
Broad. I think he's the only other person I'd like to win it. Stuart Broad.
He's got good hair.
And on that note, Ed's already gone off to have a happy Christmas, but I do hope everyone listening to this does also have a great Christmas, and we'll see you for part 2 of this episode sometime between Christmas and New Year, where I think it'll be a bit more of an awards type thing. We'll be looking back at some of our favourite moments, favourite tracks, favourite drivers, and looking at some of that. It will be good. So catch us then, but for now, see ya.